Good morning. It's Pastor Mark McDonald with First United Methodist Church of Batesville. As we come together today for our devotional, I want to give you just a few words so you can be preparing yourselves for the worship service tomorrow. Tomorrow we are finishing up the sermon series entitled Fan or Follower. It has been a sermon series on Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, which is the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus. So I want you to prepare yourself for a very special close tomorrow. Now, there are lots of ways I think I could preach the Sermon on the Mount for all year long, just almost verse by verse. You know, if you've done Bible study, you know that each passage has certain messages and each verse has certain messages. But tomorrow is the closing. And so I want you to think of what it would have been like to have been there the day that Jesus preached his first sermon. Think back, if you would, to a time where you heard your favorite sermon, your favorite preacher, maybe your favorite choir or instrumentalist, whatever it is. That moment that you had something happen in worship that was so powerful, you knew that you had been changed. Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot, but certainly by the power of the Holy Spirit. Can you imagine being there when Jesus preached? Now, I'm going to share more details and remind you of what we did in the Sermon on the Mount, how I followed that through with several sermons along the way. And you certainly can go back and look at Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. But the passage that we have tomorrow starts in Matthew chapter 7, the 7th verse. And we're reading the 7th through the 12th, our liturgy says, but we're using the verses that follow as illustrations, reminders. I really think that it's a moment that Jesus was riding the point home, just driving it home and saying, do you hear what I'm saying? And from that moment on, this is early in Matthew, so from that moment on, they watch him to see if his words translate into his life. That's the big question. As we've listened to the Sermon on the Mount, read back through it. Think of the things that we've heard about the Beatitudes, on judgment, on anxiety, and certainly radical hospitality we talked about last week. Are we living out this sermon? I believe that once you read this and you follow the rest of the Gospel of Matthew, you'll see that everything that Jesus did falls back on this. And the passage that we have tomorrow is where Jesus says, ask for anything you want. But I think another phrase we might say is, are you ready to give him everything? Are you ready to make Jesus's words part of your actions? Not just letting your words move into actions, not letting your actions be louder than words, but let Jesus's words become your actions today. Think about that, pray about that. Join us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. on Facebook or YouTube, and 11 a.m. on 103.3 FM. And let's end this time imagining ourselves sitting in the audience, listening to Jesus preach that sermon and closing it out with the greatest challenge of all. Do you trust me? Ask for anything. Give me everything. I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope, #, be a blessing.